And we're now recording. So welcome back, everybody. This is the second session of our PowerShell for DFear and Blue Teamers with Mick Douglas. If you have any questions, thoughts, or suggestions, you can hit up Mr. Douglas at Better Safety Net on Twitter. You can hit up the podcast at BrakeSec, BRAKESEC. And Mr. Douglas will have the slides posted to his website within a couple weeks. Hopefully that will be, if you're watching this in the future, it's already out there, and we'll have a link to it either in the comments on the video or what have you. So Mick, go ahead and take it away.
All right, cool deal. Well, thank you back for coming back for week 2. I hope this view works out okay, trying a new rig here this week. So this week, we are going to be focusing all about the final prep stages. And these are some of the things that I have found have been especially problematic during IR. Also, it's going to be a little bit of a forensics redemption, because some of the things that are going to be done throughout this class can make some of the digital forensics folks a little upset. And we'll explain why that is here in just a little bit. First things first, digital forensics and IR can and should be best friends forever, but they oftentimes aren't. And part of the problem is that there's an inherent conflict between digital forensics and IR. Digital forensics will take as long as they can to find out what's going on and learn the truth of the matter, etc. Whereas IR really is about restoring business operations as quickly as possible. So you have to prep for this conflict. I cannot stress this enough. Forget about all the technical things we're going to be talking about today. This one point of being able to do IR fast and quickly without stomping on needed data is probably the most important thing. And that's why, actually, the very second slide. The best bit of advice I can give you is grab memory as fast as you can, because it's one of the most volatile bits of evidence that you're ever going to handle. Things like network traffic should and can be caught with things like Bro or other packet capture tools. Memory, when it's gone, it's gone. And as you start interacting with machines in your environment, you're going to be doing more and more damage to the memory, as it were. So please do yourself a solid and grab memory as early and often as practical. Now, I know that for some of you, this might be your first entrance into doing memory analysis. And all I can say is welcome to the party. I find memory analysis to be one of the more interesting and fun parts of my job. I don't get to do it nearly as much as I'd like. But the thing that's cool about memory analysis is that it's one of those rare times in life that you can actually come to like truth with a capital T. And so if you've never played with memory, I'm going to give you 2 little bits of advice when it comes to the memory that you'll capture here. Number 1 is if you have the ability to work with virtual machines, I would encourage you to play with those first. And the reason why is quite simple. When you're doing memory forensics on virtual machines, those can be paused, and you can look at that frozen in time snapshot. So it's a lot easier to work with. And if you're using VMware technologies, the file you're looking for is this vmem file. These are actually really nice and easy to work with versus physical machines. When we do a memory grab on a physical machine, it actually creates what's called a smear process. Now, one of the things that you need to understand is that when you do a memory capture, it's not an instantaneous process in the real world. You can't just hit suspend. And so as a result, that's going to be writing to disk over some time. And this is something that you absolutely must plan for. And I don't have the correct answer for you on how and where you write to your memory. I'm going to be showing you a little bit about a framework that I'm a big fan of called Google Recall. But there are other tools out there that work really well, and they do a good job. Okay, access to the PowerShell commands would be nice. Yes, I will be giving out the slides. Sorry, there was a question. Will I be giving out the slides? I will absolutely be giving out the slides. I will be giving out the commands. Just having a little bit of problem getting the site up and launched, so sorry about that delay. By the way, hi, Mike. One thing that you need to plan for in advance is getting that memory analysis underway. And there's a variety of ways of doing this. If you have the ability to physically lay hands on keyboard and get to that machine, you can put the memory capture tool on a USB stick and configure it to write to that USB stick. Unfortunately, in the real world, I almost never am this fortunate. So usually what I'm doing is I'm invoking PowerShell to do memory capture across affected or suspect machines, and then writing that to somewhere. Now, where you write that is up to you. If you're writing it on the machine that is compromised or believed to be compromised, you may be overwriting forensics information. So that's something that you need to be mindful of. And I get that this isn't like necessarily PowerShell-y, but it is something that you have to be prepped for and aware of. The other option you have is that you can write to your network share, but that might be problematic too, because it may take longer to write to the network share than it would be for the physical drive. And so that smear effect that we were talking about is going to be much, much more pronounced. Now, here's a real pain in the butt when it comes to PowerShell, is that PowerShell can do a lot with memory analysis, but it can't get things that are running in the kernel space. And a lot of times, kernel access is the premier way to see what's going on in terms of rootkits. In fact, one of the reasons that I find both volatility and recall to be such compelling tools is there are plugins that allow you to write Yara signatures for rootkit detection. And if you don't have those that capability of grabbing kernel space, you're not going to see a lot of the kernel mode rootkits. So it's very problematic. So what I would encourage you to do is use PowerShell to invoke a third-party command. Now, for my money, there's two that you could take a look at here. There's one called IR-mempoll. Let me show you the GitHub process for that. I think it's, nope, that's recall. Having problems with the video display or the sharing screen getting in the way. Here's this one, IR-mempoll, and I'm giving you different options here because some folks might like this better than others. IR-mempoll is a pretty easy to run PowerShell script. Here, let me show you how it goes. What you're going to do, oops, let's go to our PowerShell prompt. What you do and let's see if I can run this in this system at this point. Okay, so I've not accepted the thing, so the fix for here is real simple. We're going to do a execution bypass. And then now that this is run, all you need to do with IR-mempoll is it's going to ask you for the target machine that you want to run your memory gathering on, and then where your tools directory is. Now, this is an important little bit of information here. Remember how I said here that you need to have a third-party tool? Well, what this is simply a tool that invokes one of the Google Recall scripts. And then it also has a component where it uses 7zip.exe to provide a really, really neat feature. And that feature is that it will make a password protection of your memory analysis. And the reason that this is vital is you don't want bad guys to be pulling down the memory on this machine and being able to interact with it. So this is kind of a cool little hack, and I'm a big fan of this tool. You may want to check it out. Now, other people are a little more purists and will go straight in with recall directly, and let me show you that. Recall now has a framework that actually works entirely natively in the Windows console, and it allows you to, here, let me exit out of this and show you just what's so cool about this. What you can do within Recall is you can invoke the console. Whoops, I should have ran that as, so this is now running as non-admin. That's not what you want. You need to run it as admin because you can do some really cool things here. And this is one of my favorite hacks to do. Within Recall, you can actually interact with the memory on a machine live. And this is bonkers. You simply type the command live at the prompt, and now you see that my prompt has changed, and I'm actually using the live running memory on that system. And I can do like PS list to see my processes, etc. Don't want to spend a whole lot of time going into Recall at this step. But the thing that's interesting is if you want, you can invoke the Recall objects directly using using our good friend. You can simply just do like Invoke Command on a computer of your choice. See? So now with this, I can simply point to a remote computer or to my own machine or whatever, and now I have the ability to reach out and touch those machines. Now, it is important. You do have to have your PowerShell remoting enabled, and I know there's some people who are a little gun-shy about PowerShell remoting. If you have PowerShell trepidations or PowerShell remoting trepidations, let me get on the soapbox for just a little moment and ask you, what are you doing for your remote management? And if you're answering things like, well, we're using WMIC or we're using PS exec, then I've got a very tough question for you, and that question is, how protected is your connection? And the answer is it's not. With PowerShell remoting, everything is encrypted via TLS. So you need to be moving to PowerShell remoting or WinRM because that's where things are at, and it's the wave of the future. So come along if you can. So kind of come off the soapbox for just a moment, and I want to spend some time talking about this key feature and complaint that a lot of people have when it comes to incident response is, well, Mick, if we're going to be doing third-party tools, if we're going to be installing some applications, and we're going to be invoking them remotely, how do we know that they're okay? Oh, I see there's a question. Let me address that. Okay, so Invoke Command is a pain if you're working with IPs instead of host names. That's true, but there are other ways that you can translate that. If you could, Dan, please send me an email, and I'll be sure to address a real easy hack I have for resolving that. It's actually not as problematic as you might think. there's pretty like a real easy workaround for that. But that's a fair complaint. We'll show you cool hacks around it. This is a big concern of mine. Is this matter? If you have a third-party tool that you're installing on people's workstations, and I'm a big believer in doing this because when the time comes, in my opinion, it is much better to be having a scenario where you have everything on the machine that you're going to be working with. All the kit is there. Maybe you have like a forensics directory, and what you need to do is monitor that forensics directory and let me know whether or not it's okay. Now, you have a couple different ways that you can do this entirely within PowerShell. One is if you're running an older version of PowerShell, and this is for those of you especially who are kind of stuck in the PowerShell 2.0, if you're using older, and I don't know why you wouldn't be able to update. This allows you to do file checksum verification. This is a freely available thing on the TechNet. Gosh, I really loved this tool until PowerShell 4 came out. I believe it was PowerShell 4 that made this huge advancement. And the huge advancement in PowerShell now that we have is this. It's get file hash. Now, the get file hash allows us to specify the algorithm that we're going to be looking at and then the file. And so now you can actually get the algorithm and the hash for that particular file. And it's very important that you do yourself a favor and you grab at least two. I use MD5 and SHA-1 because they're relatively fast and easy running. But these two algorithms, the reason you go with two is to avoid a hash collision scenario. And if you don't believe me about how easy hash collisions are now on files, you should check out, there's a really cool demo that somebody did a couple of years ago where they used Amazon Web Services to do a hash check of Jack Black, Barry White, and James Brown. So you need a three-way hash collision on three distinct images that still look like the same people, but the hashes all match when using just MD5. So yes, if you're concerned MD5 is a weak hash algorithm, you're correct. But to the very best of my knowledge, we don't have any collisions where both MD5 and SHA-1 are being at issue. So here's what I want you to do is go throughout your environment, figure out what kit or set of files you want to use from an incident response perspective, things like your memory grab tool. I am not going to say which memory forensics tool you should or shouldn't use because, quite frankly, there's a lot of religion and politics that go into that decision. And certainly, I need to be very clear, if you have some enterprise-grade solution, like Tripwire, for instance, has some memory analysis and also does this file integrity checking, Ncase has these. What I'm giving you here are free, built into the OS things that allow you to accomplish the same thing. What you need to do, though, is realize and understand that there's a chance that if you're dealing with an advanced bad guy, they may modify these files. So this is the way you go about checking these. So I don't know if you guys have any questions at all about that. Okay. Using these two techniques, this is going to be a bit of homework for everyone. figure out what you should monitor. And you know what? I'm going to be honest. I don't know what you should be monitoring. I like to look at system files, things like executables, maybe your own in-house apps, things like that. Please do yourself a favor and look for the DLLs. I cannot stress enough how often bad guys are now leveraging DLLs as a way of bypassing a lot of attacks. In fact, there's a buddy of mine that works at InGuardians, Adam Crompton, and he was showing me a really cool attack where you actually swap out a good DLL with your own DLL that has been altered, and it's a dynamite attack. And from a blue team side, if you don't see it, if you don't have the ability to look at that easily, it's going to be a rough day. So I don't know what I would recommend that you do is take a look at some of the commercial tools out there. If you're trying to go your own route, look at them, see what sort of capabilities they have, and build up from there. Oh, got a question. Monitor in which way? Hashes. Yes, absolutely. So the process by which you do is this. Like, simply, let's do this. Let's go with a real low, easy scenario. So, okay, I'm going to break a rule that I gave you. I said don't use out file, but for the interest of time, we're going to use out file. So we're going to do and we're going to name it hashes.text, okay? And we're also going to do the MD5 or I'm sorry, MD5 as well. And so now you see we've got these two hashes, okay, for this one file. Now, what you should do is make these hashes and then put them onto a shared drive or somewhere where this machine can write to, and then take it offline off that machine and keep this hash set safe. And then if somebody goes in and they do this, when they save it, now when I do notepad of hash 1 and notepad of hash 2, what you will see, hopefully, if the demo gods are kind, you will see that the hash values, the SHA-1 values, totally different, and the MD5 hash value is totally different. Now, you might be asking yourself, hey, this is weird that Mick only made a minor change to this file, but the hashes are so radically different. That's actually one of the core features of how hashing algorithms are supposed to work. It's a thing called avalanche conditions, where even a small change to a file should result in a wildly different hash value. And that's nice, so that you can very easily see that things have been altered. Now note, one thing that I need to be very clear about is if you want, you can also collect the hash values, the two different hashes, and if you want, you can also grab the file size. The problem is you can't always trust file size. There are bits of tools out there that will flip, especially executables, that will flip the bits. There's some stego tools that will actually flip bits in images or movies, and the file size will remain the same. The hash value is altered. So that's what I mean by here's how you monitor the files. Now, one thing that I'll caution you about doing this sort of analysis is unless you script it up, it's going to be relatively time intensive. And the other bit of advice I would give you is that you want to do this in a way that makes full advantage of the processor affinity thing that we went over on our last session. You don't want to bog down the machine. These checks will make a pretty big impact on the system. So I hope that kind of addresses the question, does it? Whoever asked that? Okay, we got a couple. Yep. Yep. Okay. Yep. A single bit should do it. That's absolutely right, Jackie. That's correct. And would you be able to make this into a for loop and pipe both hashes into a one-liner? Absolutely, you could. So the way that you would simply do this is do a for loop like so. And this is where the demo gods will bite me, so please be kind, folks. So what we're going to do is create a loop. And so the first thing that you would want to do is make a list of files. Now, how you go about getting that list of files is really going to be up to you. I mean, you could do something like pre-populating that by doing like a dir /s, /s, like, I think how you do. Oh, I'm trying to do a command to get. So hold on just a second. So this is the official way to do this within PowerShell. So you would simply, and yes, I know that I'm not using PowerShell ICE. I'm not a fan of that. Just because that's how I roll. Some people are big fans of it, others aren't. I'm not. So then what you would do is for each file in files, and let's see. One thing we haven't talked about that's kind of odd is within PowerShell, case doesn't matter, which is interesting, but so like if I did get file hash like this, that's also the same as this, just a little odd hack. And then do that. That looks like that should work. Let's make a few more tweaks here. Now, I know some of the purists are going to be a little upset with me for using the right host, and I get it. This is not for performance, though. This is just for a test. Okay, let's see how this works. Fingers crossed. Oops. Hey, not bad. It's almost like I know what I'm doing here. So this is one very, very simple use case. Now, one thing that I would strongly encourage you to do is not, there's a couple things that I'm doing here that are potential problem areas. This is bad. You don't want to just process directly off the file system, having the machine say, like, here's what I'm going to give you. And the reason for this is quite simple. If I'm a pen tester or an attacker, this line right here is problematic because it's going to give me all the children items of this. There's a way within NTFS that you can create linked files that link to one another, which basically creates a recursion path. And if you do this sort of a loop, you're going to fall into that, and it's just game over. So what's preferable is to give an explicit list of here's the directories and here's the individual files that we want to be monitored. And if there's any file or any directory that we don't expect in this particular item, that's something that you can detect for. So this is one thing that's problematic.
Is there any special way that, is there any special way that you have to make the file that you input in of directory and file names?
Oh, no. So as long as the PowerShell interpreter is able to understand where in the path you're talking about, to make things as easy as possible, what I like to do is put the full path name. So what would be more preferable is, if you notice, look how PowerShell by default put the full path name here. That's because when dealing with file objects, PowerShell is very, very verbose. And so by default, I tried to put the actual full entire path there, and it makes things a lot easier. Great question. I'm trying to think if there's anything else like this. If you guys want, in the comments or in the Slack, let me know if this is something that you would find very handy to like really jam on over the next couple of weeks, and we can actually build a breaking down security file integrity monitoring tool in PowerShell. This is one of the things that I make fairly often, like a fairly primitive one when I'm doing incident response, and it's real handy to have. You know, as you saw, whipped it up live and got it going. The thing that's lovely about this sort of analysis is that you can relatively easily extend this, like some fun ideas. One thing that I'll usually do is make API calls to the NSRL, the National Software Reference Library, and SANS, for instance. SANS has a site, or at least they did. I haven't used it in a couple months, but you could actually submit a hash, and it would tell you whether or not it's a hash for a bit of software that they know about. So this would be kind of a fun one to do. Your own hash lib API would be kind of fun if you get your own in-house apps. That's something that we could jam on. So let me know if this is something that you guys would find fun to work on, and if so, we can start playing around. Hopefully I see the chat lighten up and Slack is going, yes, please. Yep, maybe? Okay, couple maybes. Okay, cool. Well, we'll jam on that. That could be a bit of our homework. So what I'll do is I'll make a couple challenges for you. Probably the first challenge. Well, we'll hit that after the class. I want to give you some good juicy ones. Probably the first challenge, though, would be to make it so that that works on remote machines nice and easily. we can dive into that though. So cool. In the interest of time, I'm going to keep on rolling though, and talk about a couple other problems that I see a lot when I'm doing incident response. One of them is which USB you're are plugging in, and I can't say enough about how sad I am when companies come to us and say, "Hey, Mick, we wanted to install a USB stick, and we have no idea that it went in." And I get it. Like, DLP is not a great technology, but it does have its place. And finding whether or not data went walkabout is one that's a pretty nice one. That said, if you have a commercial tool that does this, you're going to have a better result than what I cobbled together with some TechNet articles, because what you can do is you can actually create a event trace when USB devices are plugged in. Now, here's something to be mindful of. The logman tool, the command arguments, your mileage may vary in terms of what performance, et cetera, you get out of this. And I'll caution you. Part of the thing that I've found is that different GPO settings and different computer components have given odd results. So this is one that you're going to have to play with. And what I want to do is, oh geez, wow, we're running. Okay, we're running. Let's slide past this one, and we will dive into this more because I really want to go into more of this. This is something that I can't speak highly enough about, and the reason why is I'm not making this up. On Friday at noon, I got a call from someone, and they said, "Hey, we need your help. There's attackers on the wire." And the command line auditing is really what saved our bacon. What we were able to do is, with command line auditing and packet capture, we were able to analyze what the bad guys were actually doing in real time as they were moving throughout the network. Now, couple things that are important to note. If you are running a not legacy, but a version of Windows that predates 8.1 and 2K12, so Windows 7, Windows 8, and Windows Server 2K8 SR2, you need to install this patch. What this patch does is this enables you, so every enterprise, that's correct, Andrew, everyone. In fact, a lot of people can't even install this because they still have a significant amount of Windows XP. The problem is Windows XP is going to be not able to install this. But what this does is this makes a very, very special change, and it gives you this magic little bit right here, the Windows Event Log ID 4688. And I hope I have this. Yes, Windows Security Event Log 4688 is now where all command line auditing is done. And it's important to note that this is command line auditing, not process auditing. So from time to time, I'll have clients that totally freak out on me when I say we need to do this, and they say, no, it's going to cripple our system performance, and nothing's further from the truth. Because what happens is, with this enabled now, you are able to see every single command that's being entered on the machine and what is being done. So in this case, we were able to use the good old-fashioned, now this is where I think we're going to have a demo fail in pretty dramatic fashion here. Let's see if I've got this set up on my machine here. As you can tell, I'm not teaching today from my normal rig. I had a technical failure. And what I'm trying to do is create my the filter using that shenanigans that I did last week. Oops. Oh, my bad. So sometimes this happens. There we go. It helps if you get your @ sign and single quote in the correct spot. Oh, man, why is this failing? Oh. Helps if you have the equal sign. Now, there we go. So now, when I do get when events, filter, XML. Oh, by the way, I don't know if you saw that happen really fast. Because there's multiple filter options, I was just hitting tab to cycle through the different ones. Shift tab will cycle backwards. So this is really important when you're playing around with some of the larger sets. Oh, did I do that backwards? Oops. See if that. No. Oh, spectacular demo fails. Failing spectacularly. Let's try this. Just for kicks. This is not the cleanest way of doing it. You should be making this be an extended quote, but yeah. I'm having demo fail. Let's see if this can even work. Whoops. Yep, no, we've definitely got them. Okay. Interesting. I'll have to play around with that a little bit more and see what's going on. But I cannot overstress how important this is. This was installed after the breach is the question about this monitoring? No. Believe it or not, this organization did a really, really good job. And they had this level of auditing turned on across the board for all of the operating systems. Now, Windows 10, depending on which version you have and what your GPO settings are, you may already have this enabled. Most of them, if they're patched to current, will have this already installed. And the reason that this was so very important and something that I need to stress is most of the attacks that the bad guys were doing were pretty benign and boring. They were like pinging machines. They were grabbing things out of the ARC cable. It was pretty boring. But they did a couple commands that just rocked my world, and it was really apparent that there were different levels of operators involved. And the one that freaked me out is they actually set up a SOX proxy using some dropper that they put on the machine, and one of the command flags was dash, and I'm not making this up, was dash XOR, and then it had an XOR key. And if we didn't have that XOR key, we wouldn't have been able to decrypt the traffic that the packet catchers had grabbed. So PowerShell and event logging are really, really powerful components and are quite nice. So hold on just a second, got a cough. So let me see if I can get that, get this working again. I'm not sure where I'm going wrong with my, let's start clean. When in doubt, wait, need to be admin. Because if you're forming the event viewer, and then it's the admin. And you'll note my XML variable is clean and new because this is a different context. Let's go back and get my, oops, go back and get my filter. Oh, I got that. There we are. Okay, fingers crossed. That's looking pretty good. There we are. Yay! Much rejoicing. All right, cool. Now, one thing that I want to point out with this here is, remember our good friend GateMember? If you run this command like so within GateMember, wait a second, I'm doing this wrong. Is it? There we go. That's what I wanted. What I can do now is I'm actually seeing, instead of just this kind of garbled, well, not necessarily garbled, but if you saw when I first ran this command, I get the time created, the ID, the level display name, and the message. Okay. But note, when I did this, there's so much more elements that are available. So I can actually pull a whole lot more if I use something like this. Select from that if I want maybe, let's see. Unfortunately, these don't support tab autocomplete here. Time created, and then let's say message. Oops. I'm working on the syntax somehow. This isn't right. I'm just not sure what I'm doing wrong. This is what I get for trying to off-road in this fashion. Hold on a second. To the Googles. think that's... Let's give this a whirl. And if I can't get this right, I will... Let's just start off easy. And if this doesn't get working, I will fix it after the pressure of this is over. There we are. Oh, yeah, because I'm piping, I don't need to specify. I'm sorry. There we go. So now I'm able to, so for those who are like mocking me in some future time, you try doing it live. What we're doing here is we've selected the particular objects out of this, and to see which different elements you want, you can simply do GateMember, like so. And these are the different elements that you can pull for this particular, when you're doing this get-win event. These are the member objects, and you can choose which items you want to get via the select object command list. And so, pass. Oops, keep forgetting to put my... So you can make the reports be whatever it is you want it to be, and it's actually not that tough. So how's that for, you know, living by the seat of your pants and getting a demo that works out of the demo god? So I hope that you've seen that PowerShell brings a lot of capabilities, a lot of elements, but it's actually not that hard to hack things together with it. So it seems like there's a bit of interest in doing some file share, or not file share, but file integrity monitoring. So I'm going to put something up out on my site, and we can start jamming on that, and I will have the slides out to you, and I will pinky swear to you I will have that before the end of the day. Now, that could be as late as midnight tomorrow, but I will have that, the slides and some stuff out there for us to jam on. So if you got any questions, feel free to let them rip. Otherwise, I'm going to just kind of hang out here for a little bit and drink some water.
Very cool. Okay. So do anybody has any questions? Otherwise, we'll just call this good for session 2. And if you have any questions or thoughts, be sure to hit up Better Safety Net on Twitter or @BrakeSec on Twitter. And we'll forward the question on to Mick. Okay.
Yeah, one quick question, Mick. When you're pulling the data from a file for the hashes, etc., what does the actual command structure look like inside of a PowerShell script? I know I've done it before, but it's been a long time because I don't get to work with PowerShell as much as I would like.
So that I understand the question correctly, you're asking what does the command look like when you're making a call to get the hash?
No. We were talking about going ahead and setting up a file with your pathing. How do you call that file into the script?
Oh, well, so you got a variety of ways. You can make use of the in file. There's also, you can just like read the file. You can make use of redirects. You can, there's a couple different ways that you can do that. Largely, I'll tell you this, it depends on the size of your file. If you have a very, very large file, just like you were using, or last week when I suggested using Stream reader, or I'm sorry, stream writer. There's a stream reader that you can use to read off of a very large file. So it just depends on the way. What I'll do is I'll make a note. So let me, let's do this, notepad, ways to input from files, because there's a variety of ways to do that. Usually what I like to do is directly invoke them off of a UNC path, and then have like a protected spot, and then that way I just modify one file, and then when I'm invoking them from remote systems, I'm modifying them all in one shot. So I'll have a little thing on there. So is there a good way to parse out? Okay, so Joel K, great question. I'll get you in a second. Dan, your question about the paste the app script into the chat where I'm making the XML. What I was doing with the XML thing is that's called an extended quote. Here, let me slide over to the Windows machine here. What you can do is foo equals, and then it's @ single quote, and then at that point you can, you know, this. You can put like special characters in here. And then you simply close it off with a single quote @. And now when I do this, when I type foo, it shows me whatever I mashed in there. So @ single quote @ That's how you do extended quotes. So hope that answers that. Now, the other question was, is there a way, let's get to the other question. I want to make sure that I represent it correctly, of is there a good way to parse out the message from Joel K? Do you mean in terms of reading the contents of the message, or just getting the message out of the command? I want to be clear on what you're asking.
Because, there we go. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
All right, cool. So like the message within Event Viewer, like the actual message field, sometimes like there's a whole bunch of different subparts out of that message. Is there an easy way to pull that out in a PowerShell command?
Yeah, but so this is the thing that really kind of is the bane of my existence as someone who works at an MSSP. Some of the Microsoft ones get really nasty. So what I like to do is I kind of cheat, and instead of parsing the command directly, let me show you how I cheat. So when I do this GateMember, there's the toXML component. Usually what I will do is actually pull down the entire component as XML and then parse it through that. So let me show you how that might work. So, because if you just do the select message, you get this bunk, and it's not really helpful to anyone. But there, why is this not rendering?
You put in a period instead of a comma?
No. The comma's not. Hold on a second. This isn't right. Let's see if I can force this. No. No, that's not going to allow that. Usually, so what I often, let's try one other thing. I'm trying to remember, there's a cheat that allows you to write the whole thing in XML itself. Oh, get one event. And no, not right now. Oh no, demo fail for real. Okay, let me make that as a to-do, because that is a real pain in the butt to do well. And the reason why I'm kind of a little salty on this is there's certain Windows event components that have, like, within the message, there's these subtypes, and you actually have to parse the message to get those out. But if you don't force it into XML, you wind up having to make these really gnarly parsers. We'll also, for bonus, put them in JSON, because I find those to be nice. So great question, Joel. Thank you.
What I've been doing for stuff like that is I pipe it to like a text file and then run Control F on the stuff I want to find.
You know what? And that works. And honestly, one of my favorite things, like, I know there's a lot of purists who will get kind of squirrely about dumping to a file and then looking through the file. Personally, I kind of like doing that. Even if I'm doing multiple iterations where I dump to a file, then modify the file and save it as another file, it's actually kind of a cool thing, because there's been a few times when I've never actually gone to court, but it's been deposed or in arbitration, and where I showed my work each step of the way really helped make a stronger case for it.
Yeah, I would usually run something like this. Yep, that would work pretty well. Yeah, thank you, Marcus. That's a really cool way of going about doing that. And then that computers.txt is when I query Active Directory and I pull down all my computer names. Yep, and so you're querying Active Directory by the net use domain. I would use get AD computer filter star and then select expand property name. Yeah, and we're going to talk about those, man. So for those of you who aren't familiar with the get AD star, because there's get AD, there's get AD user, there's get AD computer, as was just mentioned. What these allow you to do is very quickly within PowerShell pull information into PowerShell. I mean, it's lovely. The thing that's cool about this is it's a totally different API than what's used for normal API or like normal interactions. Like, you know, when you open up an Active Directory MMC, it's kind of slow. These GitAD components that we're talking about actually make use of a quote-unquote newer thing called Windows Active Directory Web Services. And the Windows Active Directory Web Services were released way back in 2K SR2, and nobody talks about them. They're lights out fast. We will have a section just talking about that. Now, Andrew, your question about what user privileges are needed for what? What are you asking?
because like getting the members of a domain, any domain user can do that. So, get win event. So get win event depends on what the permissions are for that particular event log. By default, you pretty much need to be either administrator log readers, depending on how that object's created. Some of them, though, I have seen some third-party apps where they aren't restricting that event log, in which case any user who has privileges to that machine can go ahead and pull it down. Most often, I find that you need like to do stuff with like the security log, especially for incident response. You need higher privileges than a standard user, which gets to the concept of needing to be able to very quickly swap out the admin creds that you just used. So great question.
Okay, I think.
Any other questions?
Is that it? All right. Well, that was it for this week. If you, again, like I said, if you have any questions, hit us up on Slack or at Better Safety Net on Twitter or at BrakeSec. So I guess we'll see everybody next week for session 3. Okay. All right. Later.